All right, everyone. Welcome to chapter 19, the Cress theory of the Holocaust.
18.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, chapter 18, the Cress theory of the Holocaust. Now, my starting question for everyone is, with the whole, if you haven't noticed, I hope to inform you of the whole people thinking the Holocaust is a myth of how that's going around and how like these sort of messages get spreaded by such a large number of people. I feel like now that we are able to understand racial white supremacy, what does everyone make of that? That people want to kind of erase the Holocaust, and people are there actually people that don't believe that the Holocaust happened.
Um, I think it's very interesting, or I think it definitely takes a sort type of mental capacity to deny something like that from ever happening. I think the significance of people trying to deny it is so it can happen again. Um, that's the best way I would summarize it.
Yeah, I think it may be some kind of attempt to like refine and maintain the ability to kill millions of people systematically and in a short number of time. So I think it may be like a small I don't know. I think it may be that an attempt to erase that history and erase that from the consciousness, so it could happen again. May you meet it?
I'm one of those people who actually, maybe it's my mental capacity, I don't know. But I'm one of those people that I'm not too convinced that the Holocaust happened. I have been more convinced since reading these chapters because if Dr. Frances Cress Welsing can, the great thinker that she is and the psychiatrist that she is, can basically theorize in this method, then yeah, maybe I'm being ignorant, but my mental was telling me that something that's so well documented when being explained by Holocaust survivors is the most important thing that they can do is say that it did happen, as opposed to stories of pain. Like the stories of pain come through the media. It comes through the storytelling. It comes through the films that reiterate it and create sympathy and humanize the Jewish community. The Jewish community are very well off in the sense that they're completely were able to assemble back together, got their reparations in a sense. And I feel like this book has helped me understand more, as well as doing an essay in understanding internal others within the European society, how they will do it to their own. And in reading this chapter, I understand more so that that no matter how white presented, the genetic superiority of original African roots was extremely terrifying, especially in a white community where you can't tell if they're white or not. So I now do understand some context as to why it's more possible that it would happen. But in terms of like atrocity versus like, maybe I just constantly compare it to slavery and representation, and it just makes me feel like it wasn't real. But
Oh,
um, I understand that's an opinion, and there's way more factual information out there.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I would like
I
to ask you another question. Like, given what you said, do you do you still think the do you think that at least 6 million people classified as Jewish Semites did not perish due to systematic racism? Like, yes, they were white, but the global it was white supremacy that led to their demise.
Um, like I said, that opinion that I had held came from like a sense of a feeling and rationale rather than me going strictly by statistics and facts. So I want to say no comment, but I will say that my opinion is being deterred based on the facts that I'm receiving. It's just really hard for my spiritual body to accept for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah,
yeah, I
well,
feel what Mary was saying. I definitely, to some extent, I feel that the Holocaust has kind of been blown up maybe I feel like you're kind of saying like out of proportion a little bit to maybe atrocities. I feel like every time I feel like the Holocaust has taken the image it has to be a tool or a reason why, you know, like Black people or you know, why Africans will never receive justice. Because every time, you know, we start talking about justice for, you know, Africans and Black people, people always bring up the Holocaust for some reason. It's always like they're comparing the two, the Holocaust and slavery. So I feel that maybe slavery, the Holocaust, at times is being blown up to seem like worse, because honestly, when you compare the two, they're not the same. But
yeah. Well, well, VGQ for everyone, so no worries
I don't know
about
what that
sharing.
means. What does that mean?
Victims guarantee qualifications. It means that under the system of race and white supremacy, anyone can say what they want about race, racism, or about being mistreated under the system. So
Yeah,
that's
I
right.
mean, I wanted to say something. I totally understand where Mary is coming from, and where Ezekiel are coming from, because the Holocaust is used as a distraction from the ongoing Black Holocaust that's happening right now. And 60 million people is very cute, but 50 million people is even cuter, you know. And that's the state of the African Holocaust. You have antebellums, the race war that started during slavery. I think slavery is race war. I think slavery was the beginning of a massive race war. To me, that does not get any attention. You know, it gets celebrated though. Every Black History Month, you could see a Black person in some chains, see a Black person getting hosed down, see a Black person being celebrated for sitting on a boat, sitting on a bus, but not celebrating Nat Turner, not celebrating all these like people who say, you know what, I'm not gonna be a slave. I'm gonna go ahead and get this gun, get this hatchet, and chop off some heads and fight for my liberty. So we have the recycling continuation of like there was a Holocaust and Jews are doing fine. So Black people should be doing fine. Black people are the reason why Black people are suffering. That's always that's the rhetoric. You know, the Holocaust happened, the Jews are doing good. Why are the Blacks not doing good? You know, they must not care about themselves. So I agree totally with what Mary is saying and what Ezekiel is saying. Like there's something definitely off-putting about the Holocaust. I guess it's because we're currently within our own Holocaust and no one seems to care, you know.
Yeah.
Hit like, comment, and share. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to answer the question myself, I do understand the atrocity of the Holocaust. I think it's I think it's unfortunate when any child and their family is gassed in a chamber while so I do understand that the Black Holocaust is still happening, and if we were to compare numbers, like it's way worse. But yeah, the system of white supremacy, the reason for the Holocaust, and the reason for the Black Holocaust, but they were able to refine it. So something like the Holocaust, where they're killing people who kind of look white, doesn't really happen again. Whereas it's easy to like kill the blacks because it's very clear target to see who has melanin. So why did the Holocaust happen? There were Semites, meaning half, meaning being possibly melanated, being able to genetically annihilate white people. So, and also the Jewish stereotype, they have all the gold around during that time and all the racist Jewish comics we saw in high school when we were learning about the Holocaust. And also, I don't know. I thought the Holocaust is very sad because I did watch like Schindler's List and The Pianist, so I saw that imagery is very sad. So yeah. Ashley, you want to answer the question?
Sorry, what was the question again?
Why do you think there's a lot of Holocaust deniers?
I think a lot of Holocaust deniers are white people, and white people like the idea of non-white people having power. Like white people always say that it's not the white people, it's the Jews, because then it takes away from the fact that, you know, they are the genocidal people, because the Jews maybe own a couple companies. These are white Jewish people, so they're still white. I don't know if that makes sense, but the Holocaust definitely happened, and it was definitely super horrible. And just because, like, you know, the Black Holocaust is not talked about doesn't really take away from the fact that the Holocaust still happened. And I think it's almost like a diversion away from white supremacy to even like be arguing about it, honestly. Or like, yeah.
Oh, thanks for answering the question, everyone. Does anyone have anything?
I'm only able to receive why it happened more authentically because of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing.
Yeah.
Like when I first learned about the Holocaust, of course I knew it was real, but something just didn't make sense. I'm like, these people look like German people. Like the people I'm seeing in these movies look white as fuck. So what's going on? Like no one ever mentioned, oh, Semites mean half Jew. I mean, Semites mean like half black. No one like was telling me that Albert Einstein was half black. No one's telling me that fucking Freud was half black. Basically, the fucking goddamn Jews are basically have African DNA and come from like African heritage. Judaic religion is definitely an African religion. It's been definitely have been I don't know the right term to use. I could say infiltrated or invaded or co-opted or like pillaged or exploited by people who are now fair-skinned, white-skinned people who definitely maintain the rituals of Jewish practices, definitely have the benefits of this religion, have the benefits of being classified as Jews. Jews have their own communities, their own hubs. But they don't live in ghettos anymore. Like after the Holocaust ghettos, they were able to teleport out of the ghettos, you know, with money, the government. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that also like we are Americans mostly. I feel like race in like Europe, I guess well, Mary, you're European to an extent, or you're from Europe, but like race in Europe is not the same as it is here. Like Jews have been persecuted for forever because they've always been associated with brown people because they were brown for the longest time. And like I know Mary and Trey are laughing and messaging each other, but it's that, like have definitely like whenever I've read about the history of like Europe, I've always read that Muslims and Jews were like the people that were killed a lot because they were associated with brown people. They were mostly brown. And that thing has just continued today, even if they don't look white, like, or if they, even if they don't look brown. I mean, white people pick and choose who's white. So that doesn't really matter. There's a Iranian person trying to join our group. She looks whiter than a lot of Jewish people. She's brown. Like none of that stuff actually matters. It's whatever a white person wants you to. If they want you to be white, then you're white. If they don't, then you're not.
Yeah, I thought it was it never occurred to me that the Holocaust might be about like race or not about like melanin or about being non-white because I've always considered Jews to be white, at least those Jews in the Holocaust at the time. So I think I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but I feel that there's white people do a lot to make it seem like they're not racist or that they do things that aren't racially motivated. And the Holocaust for me was maybe one of those areas where white people did this atrocious thing that wasn't motivated by race. But after reading this chapter, it reaffirms for me that for white people under white supremacy, it's always about race and being non-white versus white.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was only until after the Holocaust where Jews were like largely accepted and largely being classified as also white. You gotta remember, like Judaism, like a Jewish person is a religion, it's not a race. So like at the time, these people were probably being called like Semites, I don't know, like like we all saw, well, like most of us saw the WANSI conference, and like from my understanding of watching that conference, they didn't even really understand the the classifications they had going, and a lot of the laws they had. So
Yeah, I want to add some stuff that's gonna inform a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. I'm just gonna read from page 221. Sometimes at deep unconscious level, people do not really wish to find answers to problems that they obsessively complain about, even when that problem has caused the death of 6 million people. There is the conscious awareness, perhaps, of the need to know the whole truth and to understand in depth. But below the surface, there is a more powerful need to maintain the status quo, which depth, knowledge, and awareness would explode in volcanic fashion. Specifically, I am referring to perhaps an unconscious need of the Semites, of the Jewish religion, and perhaps other Semites as well, to avoid confronting and therefore understanding their entire historic experience amongst the whites in Europe, in addition to their prior experience with the whites while they still resided in Africa 2,000 years ago. However, I have no such unconscious need. To the exact contrary, I perceive the existing chaos and injustice on planet Earth to be of such horrendous magnitude that this global evil needs to be broken asunder by the surfacing depth, knowledge, and insight so that the true calm of a greater justice can evolve and prevail. It is just as when a volcano spews forth the molten materials from its core. The soil upon which the ash falls becomes enriched and more fertile from that which subsequently springs forth. This essay, then, is for all Black people and for all others who wish to understand the destruction of the Semites and Gypsies in Europe between 1933 and 1945. So, to me, when I read this, I was like, okay, so there are, like, what's what I was mentioning, the Weinstein Wessenschausker conference, where
whatever it's pronounced.
Yeah, where these Nazi generals and war people were organizing and planning the like strategic, methodical destruction of the Jewish people during the Holocaust. When they were sitting down talking about these people, they weren't saying, "Okay, we're gonna kill the Semites because they have melanin." They weren't saying that. They were saying everything but that. They were saying they're taking jobs from people. They're violent. They're hoarding resources. They're saying all the things that they say to every non-white person before they start to invade and kill them, calling them savages and calling them unworthy to be on German soil. And as I was reading this, and whenever I read the word German, I couldn't help but separate the word germ and man.
Oh, damn.
So like it's just really I think it's something we talk about off the record, but germ man, what is that? Like what is that? It's off the record though. Yeah.
I agree. Wow.
Can you explain that? Germ man, I understand germ. Are we talking about, when you're separating the germ?
All right. Well, yeah, I think that was a great point that you made. How like Hitler, the king of Germany at the time of the Holocaust, he was going after world domination, and he was going to do that by eliminating everyone who was not Aryan, or just to be super simple, everyone who was not white. So it's a huge indication that this is race and white supremacy at like its most aggressive form, where it's like actively genociding. I was listening to a broadcast earlier in Australia. They're recently discovering that, like, there was like close to like 250 plus like genocide sites where like the Australians literally massacred at least 6 or more people in that area, killing everyone in the tribe, or all the Aboriginals as they call them for some reason. So they just genocide by nature, it seems, and the Holocaust was that, like, in its most refined, like systematic, SS wearing leather clothing, finest. You
Mm-hmm.
Anyone want to share something from chapter?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this part where on page 220, she says, she's talking about the Semites. Throughout that time, I remained convinced that the treatment of the Semites of the Jewish religion in Europe and in America was intimately related to the gradual destruction of Black people, as well as the millions of native peoples around in the Americas by immigrating whites from Europe, a pattern which continues to the present. Um, I don't know. I kind of felt when she was talking about this, she was also kind of talking about how white people come from those countries, and when they get to America, they realize that there's so many non-white people here. I don't think it was that part, but it was somewhere. It was somewhere in that text, where she talks about white people coming from like probably like Scandinavian countries and whatnot, coming to America, kind of thinking, oh, this is like the land for white people, and then getting here and seeing so many non-white people, that kind of contributed also to the the events of the Holocaust. I don't know if anybody else kind of felt that way. I didn't read the entire part, but it was in there. But did any of you guys kind of feel that way when you were reading about that?
Okay, Phil, what way exactly?
That that white people coming from Europe or coming to America, thinking that this is a land claimed for white people, and then when they get here, they realize that there's so many non-white people, and she kind of talks about how that kind of makes white people insecure, or that when things like that, like losing a war, or so many losing a war, or just those kind of things, how white people start to feel insecure and they start exhibiting like weird behaviors all over the world. And do you think she kind of is saying that when white people come to America and they see all these non-white people here, that also contributed to the events in the Holocaust?
Yeah, I definitely agree. There probably was like, actually, at the time of the Holocaust, Germany was facing economic problems, and they basically like projected all their problems onto the Semites, and that's like kind of started everything. Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, which is like just like a racist manifesto of like how, like, these non-Aryan people are like the root of all our problems, and if you get rid of them, you could be like pure people. And so he went about solving his problem of the Semite people. So I think whenever white people are surrounded by people of color, they will feel like insecure, or like feel left out or something like that, because they have to be in a position of power, in a position of control, and they probably don't feel like they can control like people of color if they're by themselves, or if they're not like some kind of like teacher role or something. So if they're just walking down the street and they see a bunch of black people, oh yeah, they're gonna get nervous for sure.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. Europeans coming to America and seeing, so many non-white people here, especially, having to deal with the economic turmoil of that time, the world wars and whatnot, coming to America seeking employment. Yeah, so that was kind of something that was interesting to me. I never really thought about it like that. I definitely could see white people becoming like uncomfortable globally because of that.
I wanted to. I love when she reiterates this definition, and also she brings in a new term. It's on page 222. To me, it coincides with everything that we've been chatting about. It is necessary at this point to reiterate the key issues of the Cress theory of color confrontation and racism, white supremacy. The white supremacy, white survival necessity. The white supremacy, white survival necessity is to establish, maintain, expand, and refine the power equation: white over non-white. White power over all peoples with an ancestral history of substantial melanin skin pigmentation that can be genetically transmitted. The white genetic phenotype can be maintained on planet Earth only through this means: intensive genetic watch. And when I read that, I had said to myself, "Oh wow, like genetic watch." That's exactly what the Holocaust was. It was a man, aka Hitler, like basically he was watching these his imagination run wild, meaning that he was watching Jewish people do things that he didn't think they should be doing, aka exist. And I think Mein Kampf means like my struggle, I think, and that's his struggle was Jewish people, his problem Jewish people, and to me, that's what white supremacy is. It's black
the albino
people.
struggle.
What's it?
The albino struggle.
Yeah, that's what white supremacy is. It's a struggle for survival in a world where there are 90% of people on planet Earth are melanated, and 10% of the population is melanin deficient. So that's why we have genetic watches. That's why we have, even right now in America, like there are a lot of instances where black people and brown people are under intensive genetic watch. I think ICE camps is genetic watch. I think having brown women receiving hysterectomies. I have a speech impediment, so I can't really say certain words. Having brown women be neutered in cages is genetic watch. Having a high number of black males incarcerated is genetic watch. So yeah, yeah. Planned Parenthood, like the strategic, methodical, sustainable way in which every day roughly 1,000 black babies are aborted. Come on now, this is genetic watch right here. This right here is genetic watch, because these things are organized, and Planned Parenthood is of course just another branch of eugenics, neo eugenics. That's what I believe. I'll share more as we go throughout the chapter.
Yeah, I wanted to add. I was actually watching the lecture you put in the chat. Was it with Anthony Broderick? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of talking about what you were talking about, the genetic watch with like how the ghettos and stuff are set up. He's talking about how, the cops literally know where like each dealer is, like the heroin dealers on this corner, and they're all completely fine with it. But once it starts to kind of like spread out, then that's when, they start to aggress towards non-white people. But that reminds me of what you were saying, about the genetic watch. It's just like, the cops are just kind of keeping watch on the ghettos constantly. And then once they start spreading out the violence or something, then they start reacting.
Yeah. or else it's too quiet to go in there and start terrorizing people. Yeah, I discovered recently that 90% of the abortions that do happen are black people. So yeah, that's another form of genocide in itself. So yeah. Any comments?
Yeah. On
Sorry.
it's okay. On the statement that you just made in terms of um, demographically blacks being the highest number of aborted fetuses, I was thinking about like surrogate birth and adoption and and I was thinking Planned Parenthood is literally there for abortions. Why can't it actually be there for planning parenthood? If somebody comes in and states that they're pregnant through rape or they're underage, I feel like it should go into a directory, people who are looking for children, rather than paying millions and thousands for IVF insemination to to put their seed into someone else's child, can go into this directory in Planned Parenthood, and births can be aligned and assigned in this way. And I'm just thinking, these people who work in these facilities who created this, they couldn't come up with something like this. Maybe in some ways that what I'm saying is not ethical, but I feel like there's a structure and way for it to make it work where fetuses are not being aborted at such a unnecessary rate. Um, Man-made genetics is constantly being played around with when there are humans out here giving birth and there's couples who can't give birth, and I just don't understand why we haven't made those connections. Is yeah.
Well, I just want to say, in a system of white supremacy, you can't have a just system like that. You can't have anything like that makes sense going around. So I think Planned Parenthood does work for white people. I think a white person goes in there, they're less likely to get like the abortion. They're more likely to get like resources. But when black folks go in there, it's like not the same case. So yeah.
I think it actually needs to start being planned. I think it actually needs to start being a place to Planned Parenthood, or they need to change the name as soon as possible to Black Genetic Annihilation Camp.
I agree. Um, anyone have anything else to share about the Cress theory of the Holocaust?
I wanted to add some more from the readings. I wanted to read this part. I think it's really important before we get into like the bulk of it. A Semite is on page 222. A Semite is conventionally defined as a member of any of the people whose language is Semitic, including the Hebrews, Arabs, Assyrians, Phoenicians, Babylonians, etc. The adjective Semitic is defined as one of characteristics of or like a Semite or the Semites. Two, designating or of a major group of languages of Southwestern Asia and Northern Africa related to the Semitic languages and divided into East Semitic, Akkadian, Northwest Semitic, Phoenician, Punic, Aramic, Hebrew, Modern Hebrew, etc., and Southwest Semitic, Arabic, Ethiopic, and Amharic. Also informs us the prefix semi. San semi as sound means half, as in semi-diameter. Thus, both of the words Semite and Hemite, the later from the Greek Hemite, could refer to peoples who were black, but a mulatto type mixture of black and white, and combinations thereof, hence Semite or Hemite, half black, half white. Much like the present mixed black or colored population in the U.S., or wherever white males have sexually aggressed against African black females, A fine example is the Roman white soldier's sexual aggression against African women. Am I decoding the word Semite as from Latin prefix? Semite means someone whose ancestry was a black and white mixture, therefore black, since black is genetically dominant. This to me is one of the root causes of the Holocaust, is having that black blood in their veins. I'm assuming during the Holocaust, a lot of these Jewish people had kinky, curled hair, had darker skin, and we'll get into that as the chapter.
They probably have bigger noses too, because the Negro
Yeah.
has a bigger nose than a so-called white man.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I remember being in middle school and like having a lot of my Jewish peers who were white get nose reduction surgeries in middle school. So ages 13 to 16, girls would come in with bandages over their nose, and that was the norm. I went to schools in the suburbs, so Francois said they probably had larger nose and fuller lips, like Albert Einstein, perhaps. But yeah, I just wanted to share that so we can kind of understand what a Semite is more effectively.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Trey.
Yeah, I was definitely appreciative of her, definitions and her clarification, because I mentioned it a few times. Like, I didn't really understand, or I didn't really know where I was on the topic of Jews and Semites, but I definitely appreciated her definition, and it definitely did kind of put a lot of things in perspective, especially regarding the Holocaust. Because I think I was just, kind of characterizing it as somebody who's Jewish, but I didn't really understand, that was actually a person who at one point in time had origins in Africa.
Yeah, thank you, Trey, for reading that out. That's exactly what I was going to read. So, in sync minds. And what drew to me about that definition, it was her involving marking it as including the Hebrews, the Arabs, Assyrians, Phoenicians, and Babylonians. We all know the Hebrews and the Arabs, but Assyrians, am I right to say that are Persian people? And Phoenicians, am I right to say that is just like off the Greek islands? Or Babylonians, I'm not sure. But I just wanted like more, I can always research it, but just in case anyone had more context as to where these people are now.
Oh, I have no clue, and I wouldn't worry too much about the geography of it right now. But I want to read this from 2227 because I think she does a really great job of just summing it up. And it says, all non-white peoples can cause white genetic annihilation because of their ability to produce melanin skin pigmentation. Hitler made it absolutely clear that his objective was global white supremacy and white racial purity. All right, y'all. So no more confusion as to why the Holocaust happens. White supremacy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so like I said, definitely put it into perspective. I wouldn't, I couldn't, I would, like I said, this whole time I thought that was just, just white on white violence, but like I said, it's always racially motivated. Um, yeah, I definitely did enjoy the message she had at the end. I don't know if we're there yet, but that last paragraph for me was, very good. And one issue that I still kind of have is, after the Holocaust, they've been given the Semites or the Jews have been given their reparations. It's kind of like, what did they do with that, or how are they, contributing to non-white people all over the planet? It kind of makes, given her what she said at the end. Can I go ahead and read it, or should I hold on?
Please hold on. I have some stuff to say about that, but before that, I actually wanted to like talk about the role of the etymology of Caucasian and how she says Caucasian does not mean white. I'll just read a little bit of that just for context. Okay. A member of a wandering Caucasian people with a dark skin and black hair, as in to say that's the Egyptians, found throughout the world. The reader should not conclude falsely that the word Caucasian means white. Often Caucasian is used to refer to dark skin, non-white, peoples who may have straight hair, however, white means white. White means white and Caucasian means Caucasian. So I found that extremely interesting because obviously all my life I grew up thinking Caucasian is synonymous to white. And when you like break down Caucasian, it's like a Caucasus Asian, like so like a dead corpse of an Asian. Like that's like what came to my mind when I tried to break down Caucasian. But my original understanding of Caucasian is that that word was actually invented around slavery just before the reformation of reading. And that definition was given so they could have a definition under the family of man and different heritages. So yeah. What does that? What did you make of the comparison of Caucasian meaning Caucasian?
Yeah, I read
Not white.
the Afropedia that Caucasian has been used to describe like dark people. So I wasn't that surprised. Um, but yeah, and I think in the code book it even says to kind of avoid using this word, to just use the word white because well, what exactly is a Caucasian? We don't want to get into any like history or like anthropology. We just want to solve the problem of racism. So let's just if it looks white, run a test. Other white people call you white. Do you classify yourself as white? You know.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I thought when you're referring to somebody as being Caucasian, at first I thought he's, just being more specific. They're not just white, they're Caucasian. Like, let's be a little bit specific. White is, color or the absence of color. Um, so when she's talking about white and Caucasian, I I don't know what to. So what is a Caucasian then? So are these people just kind of calling themselves Caucasians and that's not even the correct term? That's not even what they are. They're going around calling themselves, or do even white people claim Caucasian to be Caucasians, but clearly, like by definition, that's not what they are. So it's a little confusing. So who are the Caucasians then? Who are the white people? Are they just white, just Europeans? Because
Yeah.
I thought that Caucasian meant like somebody hailing from the Caucasus Mountains. That's what I thought Caucasian meant, and I thought that that's where um, all white people came from, the Caucasus Mountains.
Okay,
I
so
definitely felt like Caucasian and the Caucasus Mountains were like of origin in terms of etymology.
Because I have that Armenian friend, and he's European, or obviously he's from Armenia, but I think Armenia is like where the Caucasus Mountains are, and yeah, so I just thought, I definitely put Caucasian and white together. I never thought that they were separate.
yeah, so I just found this on the Afroworldpedia. It says the meaning of the word has shifted into alien, law, foreigner, Caucasian race, even fair skinned Indonesians and their even fair skinned Indonesians and those with slighted Indonesia are tall, rich, rude, and ignorant, accompanied by the more common Caucasian stereotypes of being taught and viewing themselves as a superior race. So this is from one source. But yeah, see, there's a lot of confusion around this word because Elijah Muhammad calls the white race, the Caucasian race, and also the Caucasian race, the race of devil. So this is why it's really important just to use the term white, because it's a lot of contradictions, and we don't want to get caught up on like, we should use the right words, and the right word that we have used consistently and can use consistently is white.
Agreed. I think that stuff is important because, like you
Mm,
said, it does cause a lot of confusion.
mm,
And when you start, when you're not like very specific, I've noticed with like white people,
mm.
especially about the origins of people, like you're going around, saying Caucasians are doing all these things to us, but white people aren't Caucasians, so you're going around and basically, claiming this random group of people are doing things to you, but you're not even on the correct group. So I think that's definitely
Yeah,
important.
yeah. It could be a divergent tool. It could have some and also could have multiple meanings. It could once have been like directed at like a true Caucasian race, but the white people do the classification, and they're the ones on top. So they're the ones we should be worried about. We ain't gotta worry about nobody else but the white people, the people who do the classifications. Do we have? Do you have any more comments?
I'm gonna make a comment real fast. I'm sorry I missed this meeting, but I'm gonna be at the next one. All right. I just wanted to say that. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Off
All
mute.
right, well, we'll see. Well, I hear that a lot.
Look, man. All right. I ain't a perfect reader like you, champ, but I'll be better.
All right. Okay.
I want to say something.
Mhm.
So we need to talk about Karl Marx and the many African Jewish people, basically. I just want to jump into this. To me, this right here stuck out to me the most. It was Freud's obsession with Hannibal, and
Oh yeah. Can you please share the page, please?
225. So I'm gonna read this. We do need to read the stuff above too, because she really breaks down like how they describe these Jewish people in texts as swarthy, which means dark colored skin and all these things. But Sigmund Freud stuck out to me the most because we have access to things that he was obsessed with and who he idolized. So page 225. We now come to Sigmund Freud, 1885 to 1939, a Semite of the Jewish religion, born in Austria, a physician and psychiatrist and founder of psychoanalysis. In a July 23rd, 1979 Time book review of Freud, biologist of the mind, entitled "Did Freud Build His Own Legend?" Frank Soloway revealed Sigmund Freud idolized Hannibal so much that for years he was psychologically unable to enter Rome because Hannibal had never set foot in the city. It is interesting that Sigmund Freud, a Semite of the Jewish religion, should identify himself with Hannibal. Hannibal was a black man. Encyclopedia Britannica states Hannibal, B247 BC, North Africa, D182 BC, uh, Libya, Britannia, now Turkey. One of the great military leaders of antiquity, commanded the Carthaginian forces against Rome in the Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BC. After the Romans declared war in 219 BC, Hannibal Hannibal at the command of a force of about 40,000 and a number of elephants crossed the Pyretans into southern Gaul. From there, he executed an incredible fear to military enterprise, proceeding across the Alps and into northern Italy. In 217 BC, at the Battle of Lake Trasimene, he inflicted one of the greatest defeats suffered by Rome. I have quoted the above sources extensively because there is a significant reason why three of the greatest Semitic thinkers of the Jewish religion have been described as dark in appearance or have identified themselves as, in the case of Freud, with blackness. Freud even went further in his work, Moses and Monotheism, written in part while fleeing from the Nazis, to describe the founder of the Jewish religion, Moses, as an Egyptian, meaning, of course, a black man. Let me just finish this too, because this is important too. Each of these representatives of Semites of the Jewish religion either has identified himself or has been identified by others with blackness, primarily because the Jews in Africa 2,000 years ago were black African people. That is the reason that all of the earliest paintings of the Madonna and Child, Jesus and his mother, were a black Madonna and Child. They were Africans. And another one I want to read about is Albert Einstein.
Wait, hold on. I wanted to comment about what you read about Hannibal. I think you should make a movie about that. You know, and
I thought the exact same thing when I read that.
Yeah, I think it'd be good for the people for the entertainment area activity. So,
but maybe I don't. Hannibal is how significant is Hannibal? I mean,
god of elephants.
Mm-hmm.
Hannibal like really important. I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that would be really good to awaken someone like the consciousness, the subconscious, the unconscious of like a lot of black people who like don't understand that when that like black people have defeated white empires and white people before, and so much so that like after Carthage like defeated. Yeah. After they defeated the Romans, like the Romans developed like a saying to each other, saying good morning, fellow Roman, like Carthage must fall. So like it just gets you like a sense on like the mentality of like white people when they have enemies. This is why black people are always the focus, because they're saying now good morning, like white person, black people must be destroyed. It's like this. It's like they're not saying it, but in all 9 areas of people activity, it looks like black people are being dominated, being destroyed. So
yeah, I feel like it's highly important to tell our stories and depict our story, because his story has literally like dragged these people's name through the mud. I remember growing up understanding only about Hannibal Lecter, so they'll take these names and then
like what
the most derogatorized way, and you want to disassociate completely. So please honor the real Hannibal as well as Queen Nzinga.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. How they'll create Hannibal Lecter, a white person who like eats people. Yeah.
I don't know anything about that guy either.
Well, he's not real. I don't believe he's. Well, he's real. He's like inside every white person, but he's not real in the sense like Hannibal was.
Yeah. You're muted, Mary.
I was saying exactly. That's why we raised that name and let our Hannibal be the most known, like in terms of the collective consciousness, and not the cannabis eating one, the cannibal.
Yeah, I think Mary made a good point when she talks about how names have been, even the name Hannibal. It's such a cool name. Even when I first heard about that name as a kid, I was like, wow, this is a cool name. But I heard about it in the context of a white serial killer Cannibal from the films Silence of the Lamb, from the TV show Hannibal Lecter, from the another film called I think it's called The Red Dragon. I think there's been 2 films based off Hannibal Lecter. But the real Hannibal was a warrior. He was someone who was able to defeat Rome's army, which is really impressive. He also was able to be so in sync with animals. To be able to ride elephants, you need melanin. For you to be on a frequency, you need to have dark skin to be able to communicate with the elephant and like be in sync enough to ride this elephant into battle. Like to me, this is like the power and amazing ability of Black people. Like if you have a dark skin and you're in Africa, of course you could communicate with elephant. Of course you can become in an agreement with elephants saying, hey, we have a neutral enemy, the enemy of the earth, which at the time were the Romans, apparently, and they won. Like his troops and his elephants won against the Roman army, which no one had been able to do during that time. And like what Swat said, that defeat resulted in them changing how they spoke to each other.
Yeah.
You know, they were constantly reminding each other, hey, you know, the Carthaginians must fall. And whenever you hear about the Carthaginians in film and television, they're always white people. They're not Africans, you know. It's always pale faces. And
I never heard of that before this. The Carthaginian. Yeah.
I mean, Hannibal popped up. I remember my first time hearing about Hannibal was in middle school, and it was literally for a second. I was in my white suburban school, Parvier, and then there was like a saying about Hannibal and how he was African, how rode elephants. And that's it. Like we immediately went to another topic, never talked about it again. But glimpses of that appeared in my curriculum. What else? Well, while Swan's gone, I might as well get another Semite. Let's expose Albert Einstein. Not expose him negatively, expose him positively. You know, expose his darkness.
Okay, before you read that, I just wanted to also say.
Okay, well, you're muted.
Before you read that, I also wanted to say, first of all, yes, some more. Yes, we need to redefine. We need to bring back our names, because imagine how many people. I'm sure there's been a massive decline in how many people are called Hannibal, but imagine if we had carried on that energy and we called ourselves that, because there's so much power in the name. You know, we could have revolutionary kids. At least they'll understand that that's the purpose of their name. Also, it's done to the word melanin. It's done to so many names throughout history that we have now just basically been dragged through the mud, so it could just basically remove the power. There's a woman called Hepatia. She was one of the first African scholars and educators within, I believe, there's a whole movie about her, but it's of course she's depicted as a white woman, and it's about the the great library of Alexandria that has the lots of the Egyptian knowledge and like lots of sacred knowledge, and they were constantly in war with the church. Hepatia is somebody who was killed by the church, and they had dragged her through the city and just burnt her books. And I just thought it was very powerful that there was a Black woman those centuries back, gathering students around her, being educated. And now, for me, the closest thing to Hepatia is the word hepatitis. Like there's no other reminiscence of her, and I know that's something that's done purposely to derogatize the work that she's done on this earth.
Yeah, that's insane. I didn't even know that, but yeah, you definitely get white people doing that a lot. And yeah, I didn't know the significance of those characters. I thought that those are always, white characters or white people that white people created. So
I wanted to further. I want to read some more from the text. If no one knows, if we are done, Ezekiel. Yeah. All right. Another Semite of the Jewish religion who was identified as a black was Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, 1879 to 1955. The great Nobel Prize physicist, as documented by Robert Clark's Einstein, The Life and Times, was once described as 1.75 meters tall, broad shoulders with a slight stoop. His short skull seems remarkably broad. His complexion is swarthy. Webster's New World Dictionary defines the word swarthy as having a dark skin, dusky, dark. See dusky. The same dictionary defines dusky as 1. Somewhat dark in color, shadowy, swarthy. 2. Lacking light. Dusky suggests a darkness of color or absence of light, verging on blackness. Swarthy and tawny both refer only to color. Swarthy suggesting a dark brown verging on black. The Encyclopedia Britannica, whatever the fuck this word is, described Einstein as a young man, not very tall, with a wide and long face, and a great mane of crispy, frizzled, and very black hair, sprinkled with gray and rising from a lofty brow. His nose is fleshy and prominent, his mouth small, his lips full, his cheeks plump. This was a description of Einstein in his middle 30s. Crispy and frizzled hair is one half step away from kinky hair. Again, we see in the person of the most prominent Semite descriptives features that are associated with the genetic stock of the African continent: swarthy skin and crispy frizzled hair. I also think the fact that they mention his lips is also coding the fact that he is a blackness. He has black features, aka black blood. And remember, in white supremacy culture, if you have 1 ounce of black blood, you're black. So Albert Einstein, in theory and context, it was a black man. So was Karl Marx. This is on page 224. It is significant to the discussion that Karl Marx, 1818 to 1883, another Semite of the Jewish religion, has such dark skin that his children called him the Moor, meaning, of course, the black. Robert Heilbronner, in his book The Worldly Philosophers, states, and contrasting the appearance of Marx with his co-worker Friedrich Engels, they were very much opposite in appearance. Marx looked like a revolutionary. His children called him the Moor, for his skin was dark and his eyes deep set and flashing. Prior to reading Heilbronner, I always have been impressed by the great similarity in appearance of Frederick Douglass, the pre-Civil War black orator, and Karl Marx. Frederick Douglass was the offspring of a black woman and a sexually aggressing white slave master, thus himself a Semite or mulatto. And I think that's the reason why a lot of black people gravitate towards Marxism, consciously or subconsciously, is because these ideals resonate with them, and they feel like this Marxism is a way to escape the system, to escape white supremacy. But Marxism itself is just another reaction to white supremacy, another person who doesn't really understand who they are or why they're being oppressed or why they're targeted, kind of creating a system for themselves that they think will lead to survival.
Yeah, I think Trey, all the stuff you're sharing, it was just reminding me of racism and white supremacy, and like how it works. Is that it reminds me of this analogy I heard by Neely Fuller, where he says that racism and white supremacy is like you're in a room and then someone set a fire, and then like someone set the fire alarm off, but only one person It's like 15 people in the room, and only number 7 knows where like the fire exit is. He's the most powerful person in the room, because he has the information. So what white supremacists has done is they just started a fire in the world, removed all the fire exits but one, and they got us like running around looking for like an exit. The exit is justice, the system of justice, but no one knows that, So they start the fire and they set the alarm. And
good point. Yeah, I think white people definitely know how to stop racism and white supremacy, but they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, when the Jews started getting all those laws set against them, like the alarm was already going off, but they didn't have they didn't know where the fire exit was, therefore they burned up in the fire. So white supremacy in effect right there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mary.
No, go ahead, because I have to get muted.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's I never really knew that these people were. Okay, good.
For me, based on the readings that Trey just did, I already knew. Well, I already had some information that Albert Einstein was black or had like black backgrounds, and which is why we don't see early photos of him, and all the photos of him are like late in his life where they can depict his hair as white and
or
like
black
electrocuted
and white,
as opposed to
with his tongue sticking out.
Yeah, like electrocuted as opposed to melanated afro. Very interesting. But yes, it just this chapter highlighted for me mainly there's another sense of pride about great thinkers in our time that we've had no choice but to look up to, actually having actually being highly melanated, and just regaining that, just releasing that condition and regaining that confidence in self, that we're not intellectually we are more than intellectually poor, and we can spark minds with them. The greatest thinkers throughout time, some of the greatest contributors to their culture, in particular white culture, like Mozart was a black man. So all these understanding these things, and I'm beginning to think the knowledge that I have of Albert Einstein being black came from Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's book, despite the fact that it wasn't stated as such. But based on her breakdown, it makes sense that to say that this would be where their source was. So yeah, I'm really happy to have broken this down. And yeah, Trey had made a mention of swarthy, and it made me think about the word swatch also meaning black, and then Schwarzenegger also being like a play on words, which makes sense as to why everybody in the whole world knows how to say Schwarzenegger. But yeah.
So these people definitely some great minds, like he said. I've heard very infrequently about Albert Einstein having black roots, but it's very hard to kind of prove that given all the pictures we have of him and whatnot. Black and white, like you said, when he's much older. But those are very important people.
Ezekiel, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So after having read the text, were you able to, now you have different, if you want to let people know that he's black? I think the perfect defense is how he was described and how he was described by other people,
Say that last part again, Trey.
Do you think you think you've been convinced and you have evidence now to support the grounding that he was from black DNA?
Yes, I do. I do think so. I'm sorry. My brother is talking in the back. You were talking. You wanted to know if I believed he has African roots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. Just giving her a definition of what a Semite is, you know, so anyone having African roots. I think my issue was, you know, I wasn't able to, you know, separate being a Semite from being a Jew. Like you can be a Semite without being a Jew. I think that's where like I was struggling a lot before, because now it's clear like you can be a Semite and a Jew. That's like an African Jew. So yeah, I think I'm good now.
Yeah.
But my only question now is that question I was kind of asking earlier. You know, after the Holocaust and everything, the Jews got their reparations and whatnot. But like, as far as like them contributing to, you know, fighting white supremacy, and you know, contributing to non-white people, because it's everybody knows they have a lot of like resources and money. Everybody knows that they control Hollywood and all that, you know. So, but you know, non-white people all over the world continue to find themselves
Well,
in
I'm
these
gonna say this:
conditions.
the Jews are largely, or like the people who classify themselves as Jew, who practice Jewish religion, are largely white. So white people still control Hollywood. White people still control everything. It's not the Jews controlling; it's white people. I think that's really important to understand. And yeah, they're
So you
classified as
think
white.
when they're like, oh, you know, Black America has 1.5 trillion dollars a year, you think that they're including those Jews in that,
Mm.
even though they're non-white, right?
But
I
after the
guess.
Holocaust,
Mhm.
they were accepted into like they're classified as white.
I
Yeah,
see.
I've seen, sorry, several, like in my years, I've seen several celebrities with blonde hair and blue eyes. Maybe their hair's dyed blonde, stating that they are Jewish. So, like, of course, I understand the main phenotype of like dark brown hair, dark brown eyes, and that phenotype of Jewish people. But I've seen a lot of white people say they're Jewish. I don't know. Maybe they're doing the $5 thing.
Could be. Uh, I wanted to read this last part, the last paragraph in the
Hey, before you do
chapter.
before that, can I read some more stuff that before that so we get more grounding context for it? And
Oh yeah, go ahead.
all right, my bad. Um,
You're fine.
on page 227, um, she goes on. She explains why Hitler decided for the Jewish people and for Gypsies to be the focus of the Holocaust. Basically, Gypsies is just short for Egyptian. Back in the 30s, most Gypsy people were just black women, Egyptian women from Africa who had traveled to Europe. Um, and this to me is really important to read. It's two paragraphs. I'll just go ahead and zoom through it. The reason Hitler gave for making the Semites and Gypsies priorities on the list of destruction was that they were classified by the whites, Aryans, as non-white peoples whose origin was in Africa. These non-white peoples were considered genetically inferior to the whites, but capable of causing white genetic annihilation. Therefore, it was considered essential by those who were interested in white genetic survival to destroy those in their midst whom they believed could cause white genetic annihilation. All non-white people can cause white genetic annihilation because of their ability to produce melanin skin pigmentation. Hitler made it absolutely clear that his objective was global white supremacy and white racial purity. The specific fear of white genetic annihilation, while always present in the global white collective, becomes more prominent and is more frequently acted upon in times when whites have lost a war and/or when there is serious economic uncertainty. At these times, the white collective feels insecure because the major props for their sense of white invincibility and for white genetic survival, their guns and money seem to have failed. Thus, after the Germans lost of World War One, which was followed by political instability, high level inflation, and high level unemployment, there appeared on the scene a dynamic spokesperson articulating the need to destroy those perceived as capable of similar destruction. This is verbatim what happened with the Trump election. We have 8 years of a black man running America into the ground, supposedly. You have all these imaginary problems that have been created by a black man. And keep in mind, these are all imaginary things. Why people think they're doing really bad because Obama was in office for 8 years. And then you have an outspoken spokesperson arriving on the scene, aka President Dump, and you have this man talking about rapist Mexicans infiltrating America. He's calling these people rapists on national television, calling them just the worst things on national television, talking about how essential it is to build a wall and like all his plans to like preserve white people. Whenever a president is talking about separating the country from certain people, I see it and hear it as this man is talking about protecting white people from non-white people. Building a wall was to separate white people from brown people, primarily Mexicans. And even now, today in 2020, we have ICE camps that detain Mexican people, detain brown people. They also detain Africans as well, but Africans are shipped quickly back to Africa and back to like Caribbean islands. But that's not talking about in mass media culture. We do have a high focus on the continued criminalization of brown people, the continued criminalization of people from Mexico. But yeah, it's just like all non-white people are always juxtaposed and attached and compared to and associated with drugs, bad behavior such as rape, criminal behavior such as drug trafficking, and that's what Hitler did. That's exactly what Hitler did. He popped up on the scene and says, "Hey, we as German people are doing bad because of these people. Let's sort it out." And I think it's necessary to draw comparisons because Hitler and Trump are definitely similar.
Yeah. I think, that's very interesting. I think it goes back to like the white culture and behavior always needing to kind of create an enemy. They're talking about World War One and the effect that it was having on them. But, Hitler went out of his way to make it about, non-white people, that they were the issue. It wasn't all the us funding a war and losing it. That had nothing to do with non-white people. That was just us. Um, so it just kind of keeps going back to kind of creating that narrative and that enemy for white people, that non-white people are always going to be constantly attacking them, are always trying to get them. And Trump, like you said, they have similarities, and he also kind of contributes to that narrative, and he creates that narrative with a lot of his rhetoric and what he's saying. So definitely, you can definitely see a lot of that in Trump and his supporters, them feeling it necessary to attack non-white people and them using Trump as justification for it. Like white people use Hitler for justification.
Yeah, I feel like understanding this chapter allows us to understand like what exactly is a neo-Nazi. Just a new Nazi, not that complicated. It's a person who believes in racial purity, a person who does not mind the genocide or slaughter of millions of people to ensure racial purity. So they need to start being serious about this and really start understanding that Hitler is a good example of white people being very serious about the game of genocide. And Cress,
Yeah. What is a neo-Nazi?
what do you say?
What is a neo-Nazi?
A neo-Nazi is a white supremacist that takes the beliefs from Nazi Germany and kind of refines them to fit modern times. So, for example, you have white people who are considered skinheads often have tattoos of crosses, the German crosses that they had on their badges. They have the Thunderbolts, the Nazi Blitzkrieg's Thunderbolts on their tattoos of that. Swastika tattoos. These are people who are simply white supremacists who have adapted Nazi ideology. You know.
I see. Thanks for the
A great
clarification.
example of this, an American History X. Have you seen it?
No.
Yeah, it's a very disgusting film, but very like true.
Oh wait, sorry, is that the one with Christian Bale in it?
No, American History X has Edward Furlong and Edward Norton and Edward Furlong. Yeah, those are the actors. And it's about this white supremacist family and how they joined this neo-Nazi group and how they kill black people and abuse non-white store clerks and how they play basketball with black people and win for somehow. It's a really crazy, insane movie. It also depicts a pattern of white behavior that's very, very historic and relevant, which is rape. You have a scene where a white male is raping another white male violently in prison. And of course, the white male being raped is a white supremacist. The white male who's getting raped is someone who was also a white supremacist. He's in jail for killing a black man. But it's very telling. I mean, I had to watch it in middle school. You know, why are they showing this film in middle school? Obviously, the program racist. You know, and the film ends with you see these white people do all these terrible things, but when the film ends, you're left with the idea that the black people were still the problem. You know, because a black person ends up killing one of the main characters at the end. So it's just really disgusting. I remember watching the film and middle school and knowing that this was a film created to like be put against me and my people. I knew that it wasn't like, oh, this is about racism. This was more about white superiority and why people need to be kept down. And subconsciously, it's a really valid film. And yeah, I mean, if you can stomach it, it is worth the watch because it is really, really telling. And it's really honest and how white people think, how other people operate, how they recruit, how their ideology is like rehearsed. And yeah, it's a bad movie, but if you want to gain knowledge, it's definitely like I maybe watch it honestly and just fast forward some parts. You know?
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I have my HBO Max subscription for a little bit longer, but I'm getting rid of that trash. But I'll definitely watch that before.
I mean, everything I get is off the bay. You know what that means, you know. Yeah. This and the part you wanted to read, does it begin with the Semites?
The very last paragraph.
Yeah, we should read that together. That's a bit a handful. It's also really powerful. So we should have more black voices channeling that power. So if I can bring it up on my screen. Ezekiel.
Okay.
Once I bring it up. Let me get my screen share and let me bring it up. Let me 1 second. I have a mouse down from my computer, so it's really easy.
All right. The Semites of the Jewish religion were chosen to teach a very important moral, and that is never disrespect or be ashamed of the Black genetic heritage of Africa and speak up for, own up to, protect and defend that heritage with your very life, should conditions and events ever call upon you to do so. Be proud to be Black and be proud to be non-white. This is a profound lesson in self-respect for all the people in the world. So yeah, that was definitely very powerful. I felt definitely one of the most powerful paragraphs in the book for me. I think I see definitely a lot of non-white people, Black people being ashamed of their melanin, being ashamed of their heritage. You know, acting European. The European taught you to hate yourself and to think you were inferior. You know, and like she says, you know, the Jewish people, the Semites in Europe, you know, they kind of thought like that. You know, they thought that they were white. You know, they didn't think that they were African. They subscribed to that whole European ideology, and look where it got them. You know, they were annihilated. I shouldn't laugh about that. It's not funny, but they were annihilated. Um, yeah, so I think that that should be a lesson to us all, you know, rather than trying to, you know, act act as if, or try to act ignorant to the fact that we have African heritage and we have African genes. We need to start, you know, be accepting that and being proud of that. I think that's definitely going to get us further than in this fight against white supremacy. If we start acknowledging that and being proud of those things. Like she said, she brings up self-respect once again. So I think that that is the key to self-respect. It's to appreciating that and not being ashamed of your genetic heritage.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks so much for reading.
Yeah, they should reading and sharing that.
I wanted to read this part as well. um, I'm gonna read some of it, and I'm gonna let Mary read the other half. The Semites of the Jewish religion always have referred to themselves as God's chosen people. However, they have debated amongst themselves the reason they were chosen and what they were chosen to do. I have answered these questions in the following way. They were chosen to help all of the other non-white peoples of the world living under white supremacy domination to understand that no matter how you may mix with and intermarry with people who classify themselves as white,
no matter how no matter how light skinned you may become through loss of melanin pigment, no matter how straight your hair may become, no matter how much you may shrink the size of your nose, no matter how many doctors, lawyers, judges, professors, scholars you may produce, no matter how
Sure, you gotta mute your mic. Sorry.
Freud's, Marx, Rubinson's you produce, no matter how much money, diamonds, and gold you may obtain, if you are classified as non-white under the conditions of white supremacy domination, when the hammer of the white supremacy falls, you will be under the hammer.
Yeah, I wanted to add too, you know, that last part about the hammer falling. It's almost like, you know, if you know, they're one of the issues with them is they're also like kind of turning a blind eye to it. You know, you're still non-white, so when these, you know, these atrocities start picking up speed and they're able to practice these out on a massive level, you're going to be a part of that. So if Jews being in positions that they may be in, if they're, I don't know about now, but if they're able to like do something about, you know, white supremacy, they should be, rather than trying to say that they're white. But like you said, you know, most Semites and Jews today are white people, so honestly probably can't even count on them for anything. They consider themselves to be white.
Yeah, for me, yeah, this chapter, the ending is so powerful and energetic, and I feel like
Wait, can you get Trey to mute his mic?
anybody who is white passing that reads this will definitely get like a kick of fire in their ass, I believe, which would be really good. I feel this also applies to Black people who assimilate into higher white society, thinking that becoming a professor or a doctor is good enough to basically lose their Blackness in any way, shape, or form. I feel also that the versions of the Jewish heritage that we're seeing today, and the people who are practicing the religion, I don't have much hope that, especially if they control how much of the media, and the narrative still kind of is the same. I don't see them using as chosen people, showing any form of way other than through living by example. Like we can adopt and learn to be community filled, to be restrictive in whom should be able to read our religious practices. I feel like that's the only way that they've literally shown us how to be. Also, like literally by just by showing us how we need to be living. Sorry, I also think it's very I also think it's very powerful in terms of this is a profound lesson in self-respect. Yeah, I see it, I feel it, and we have, because of lack of self-respect, Indian people are highly affected by colorism. Like it shows within their community, and you see that disparity play out, and it's sickening. We see ourselves like it's almost funny to ridicule somebody who doesn't have a British clean accent or English enunciating form of an accent. If they have any kind of twang or like any kind of their own any kind of their own dialect on it, it's something that can be ridiculed. And I feel like that's all purposeful and lack of self-respect, because we don't honor our mother tongues and tell people you have to learn my language to talk to me. So it all ties in for me.
Ashe. I think that was good for closing comments, because I also had the Semites of the Jewish religion have always referred to themselves as God's chosen people. I also had that highlighted in that whole part because I want to talk about it, but I think we talked about it enough. So, like, if you're Jewish and you watch this far, please, we're trying to create justice on planet Earth where no one is allowed to be mistreated, and those who need the most help receive the help. So, put your money where your mouth is, support our Patreon, or, start getting serious about countering racism and white supremacy. Tell your racist people to stop doing it. Tell them to be more constructive. Um,
Go out to those white banks, bring us those loans, and you pay for them. Pretty much. That's what I want white people to do for justice.
All right. Okay.